when an amazing truth was revealed. My daughter's words transformed my life in just 30 days. Tom's heart sank the moment he heard the words potential demotion echo in his mind, like the sound of falling concrete. He sat in the dim light of the kitchen, staring at the pile of unpaid bills that loomed like a mountain of dread. After 2 decades as a foreman in a construction company, his life felt like it was unraveling thread by thread. Single fatherhood already strained his spirit, but the thought of telling Emily that the world was tightening its grip on them filled his stomach with a leaden weight. It felt surreal, yet undeniably real. How could he face her when he had failed to provide what every father should: a secure foundation? As he lost himself in thought, Emily's laughter floated in from the living room, light and free. What would it mean to her if he couldn't stand strong in the face of these challenges? He had mortgaged his dreams, leaving his ambition to become an architect buried with his youthful hopes. What had he sacrificed? It gnawed at him, a constant reminder that the world he had built to protect Emily had become a prison holding them both captive. He hesitated, anxiety flooding his chest, as the realization hit him. Was he teaching her resilience, or was he crafting a narrative rooted in fear? The contrast of his daughter's soft voice painting her dreams felt like a slingshot pulling back, ready to release. She spoke about her own passions, her dreams of writing, and in those moments he felt a flicker of hope and dread. What if she ran into the same walls he had chosen to ignore? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her words ignited something in him that had laid dormant for years. He recalled the feel of a pencil in his hand, sketching blueprints as a bright-eyed teen. But where was that Tom now? He felt guilty for even considering awakening that part of himself, fearing it would leave them both more vulnerable. Dark thoughts crept in. Would pursuing his passion jeopardize her dreams too? The weight of his own unfulfilled aspirations threatened to crush him. The thought that he could not only fail his job but his daughter, the idea anchored deep in his chest, pulling relentlessly. Just as he thought he could muster the courage to reach for the old sketchbook in the attic, the looming shadow of an old rival reared its head. They were in a relentless contest now, and he had never been a fighter. The fear of losing the fragile bond he was building with Emily sent his heart racing, tightening his throat. He couldn't falter this time. Standing on the precipice of his past decisions swirling in uncertainty, Tom felt a desperate urge to confront the ghosts of his choices. Would he grasp the architect within him, or would the fear of his rival, and his own insecurities, lead him to yet another failure? The walls felt like they were closing in around him, and for the first time he faced a decision that weighed more than finances. It was about who he was, about who he could still become for Emily. With her dreams flickering behind him, he braced for the fight that would determine not just his future, but theirs. Tom took a deep breath, the air heavy with uncertainty and possibility. He could almost hear Emily's laughter chime through the house, momentarily grounding him. It echoed softly, an unwavering reminder of what was at stake. As he stood in the kitchen, the faint flicker of the overhead light flickered rhythmically, reflecting the erratic pulse of his thoughts. Could he summon the courage to recalibrate his life, or would he remain a cautionary tale, echoing the failures of his past? Determined not to ignore the call of his dormant ambitions any longer, Tom resolved to dig out that old sketchbook from the attic. The plan coursed through his mind, a tangible mission that linked him with the vibrant aspirations of his younger self. The attic loomed in the back of his mind, a dusty vault of forgotten dreams and aspirations. He had managed to keep it sealed off for far too long, but with each passing moment, the pull grew stronger. As he climbed the creaking stairs leading up to the attic, he felt the oppressive weight of time pressing on him. Each step was a metaphor, ascending to reclaim more than mere artifacts but also the pieces of himself he had long abandoned. Once at the door he hesitated. What if he opened this door only to find nothing but fading shadows and lost chances? But looking back into the living room, where Emily was scribbling away in her notebook, a surge of resolve flooded him. If he intended to guide her through the labyrinth of life and support her dreams, He needed to stand first as an example of perseverance, and the attic. The dust motes danced lazily in the dim light. There were boxes piled high, overflowing with memories, cluttered with the remnants of a life once vibrant. He pushed through them, opening each box like unveiling layers of himself that had lain dormant for years. The familiar scent of wood and ink filled his nostrils, an intoxicating reminder of days spent weaving dreams into architecture. His heart raced as he found the old sketchbook, its cover worn yet inviting. Flipping through the pages, he marveled at the sketches, the whimsical designs that bridged imagination with reality. Each drawing reminded him of a time when aspirations felt like they could take flight. As he traced the lines with his finger, a reverberation of latent talent stirred within him. Could he actually do this again? The thought felt exhilarating yet terrifying. In that moment, a realization settled within him. To teach Emily about resilience, he would need to embrace his own. Yet lurking beneath his resolve was the specter of his rival, the ever-looming threat that embodied failure. What if reaching for that dream put everything he worked for in jeopardy? The conflict roiled inside him as he stared at the images from his past. Just as defiance began to rise within him, a sharp knock echoed down from the attic door. It brought him back to the present, and a sudden pang of anxiety gripped him. Who could that be? With the sketchbook clutched tightly to his chest, Tom descended the stairs to confront whatever awaited him. His pulse quickened with each step, curiosity battling the fear that throbbed in his temples. Was he prepared for a challenge today, or would he retreat into the comfort of denial yet again? As the door swung open, the face he saw left him momentarily speechless. The very rival who once overshadowed his dreams now stood there, wearing a knowing smirk. Tom was about to discover just how far he was willing to go in reclaiming, not just his ambitions but the very foundation he was building for Emily. Would this encounter solidify his determination, or would it send him spiraling back into the safety of his old life? Tom stared fixedly at the familiar face, disbelief crashing against the walls he'd built around himself. Mark's presence was a jarring reminder of everything he had almost forgotten: the fierce competition, the heart-stopping tension, and the crushing weight of inadequacy. Tom watched as his rival assessed him, eyes narrowing ever so slightly, as if weighing not just Tom's physical form but his spirit as well. "What are you doing here?" Tom managed, the words escaping him rather weakly. He fought to center his thoughts, recalling the sketches in his hand and the promise they held. "Just passing through, thought I'd drop in." Mark stepped forward, invading Tom's space with his usual confidence, the kind that had always irked Tom but now ignited the embers of his anxiety. "Heard you were back in town. Still playing architect?" Tom took a deep breath, forcibly reminding himself that he wasn't merely a bystander in his life anymore. "I've been doing some thinking," he replied carefully, allowing his gaze to challenge Mark's scrutinizing stare. Perhaps he could turn this encounter into an opportunity for growth rather than a descent into self-doubt. "Thinking? That's new for you. You used to just draw," Mark scoffed, his tone a mix of mockery and feigned concern. "If I remember right, it was more of a hobby than a career." Those words stung, but they also sparked something deeper within Tom. Were they really just vicious memories of his failures? Or could they be catalysts for change? The flickering lamp in the hallway cast shadows that danced between them, and Tom saw his younger self reflected in the moment, full of dreams but shackled by fear. "I've kept that part of myself alive," Tom replied, an unexpected steadiness rising within him. "Your skepticism won't stop me from trying again." Mark's smirk faded slightly, replaced by a momentary flicker of something, perhaps respect, or even envy. "Look, I didn't come here to fight. Just thought you'd want to know that the industry is pretty competitive. You're going to need more than nostalgia and a dusty sketchbook." "Maybe I don't need a lot," Tom said, each syllable steady. "Maybe what I need is the courage to embrace what I almost lost." As he spoke, he felt the sketchbook's weight in his hands, an anchor tethering him to that resolve. Mark's gaze held longer this time, the shift unmistakable. For a fleeting moment, Tom believed he was looking at something beyond their rivalry, perhaps a glimpse of shared vulnerability. Then Mark shrugged, adopting an air of indifference again. "Whatever you say, but don't blame me when your dreams come crashing down again." As Mark turned to leave, that nagging feeling returned, echoing a question Tom had been trying to suppress. What if Mark was right? The encounter ignited something fierce, a desire that spiraled within him, pushing him into unknown territory. He scrutinized Mark's retreating figure, contemplating whether this was truly a defeat or the beginning of something much greater. Who was he now? The answer chased the shadows away, leaving an imprint of newfound resolve. That night, Tom found himself hunched over the sketchbook once more. But this time he wasn't merely flipping through the pages, he was planning. This was about more than just sketches. It was about creating a portfolio he could be proud of, a path that could inspire Emily as much as himself. Hours slipped away unnoticed, fueled by an urgency he hadn't felt in years. Each sketch was no longer an artifact of his past, but a stepping stone towards a new dream. Yet a looming dread curled at the edges of his determination, the idea that Mark wasn't simply a rival. He might represent the larger voice of doubt that had echoed through Tom's life. The next morning, as sunlight poured through the kitchen window, illuminating the sketches he had worked on through the night, Tom resolved to meet that doubt head-on. Before he could second-guess himself, he grabbed his phone, heart racing as he hesitated over the contacts. He was ready to reach out for help, to rediscover collaboration, connection, and, perhaps, mentorship. But as he scrolled, the name that stood out was Mark's, a duality of rivalry and an unexpected alliance. Would his willingness to seek support from the very person who challenged him shift the dynamics of their relationship? Tom closed his eyes, breath hitching at the thought of such proximity to his old nemesis. The tension swelled, each breath echoing a promise of transformation and a newfound approach to not just architecture but life. Was he ready to embrace what lay ahead, confront his past, and potentially reshape his future in the face of fear? Determined and vulnerable, Tom took a deep breath, preparing to make a call that could redefine everything. Tom's hand trembled slightly over the phone screen, uncertainty lacing his thoughts. He had lived with this rivalry for years, marred by memories of failure and self-doubt. Yet, as he contemplated reaching out to Mark, the thrill of potential collaboration sparked a dormant excitement within him. What if he could change the narrative? Taking a deep breath, he pressed the call icon, heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The ringing felt agonizingly slow. An eternity of waiting for what could either bring clarity or further entrench him in insecurity. "Hey, it's Mark," came the confident voice on the other end after a few rings. "Mark, it's Tom." His own voice wavered slightly. "I was wondering if we could talk." Silence followed, the type that reverberated with unspoken questions. "About the industry, or are we still rivals?" Mark asked, a hint of amusement creeping into his tone. This was a defining moment. "I think we could both benefit from some fresh perspectives. Maybe we could collaborate on a project." Tom felt the weight of the words as he voiced them, flinching at the audacity of the proposition. "You serious?" Mark's skepticism was evident, though it was accompanied by curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" Tom plunged into an idea that had been growing after his encounter, an architectural exploration of spaces that not only served functionality, but also inspired emotional connections. He could picture it vividly, the sketches coming alive at his fingertips as he described how he envisioned a series of innovative co-housing projects that championed community and creativity. As he spoke, energy coursed through him, a surge of confidence banishing the dread that threatened to hold him back. There was a rhythm to his words, each sentence reinforcing his belief in this fresh approach to architecture. "Interesting concept," Mark finally admitted, the guarded tone softening slightly. "But are you sure you've got the chops for this? It's a big undertaking." "More than ever," Tom replied, the ember of determination rekindling. "I've been out of the game long enough to know what I want, and it's not just about aesthetics. It's about purpose." Another pause stretched between them, this one charged with recognition, even respect. "All right, let's meet. I'll humor your idea. But don't expect hand-holding." A rush of adrenaline coursed through Tom. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Hanging up, he felt lighter, more centered. It was as if that simple exchange had torn down the walls he had constructed around his self-worth. For far too long, he had let envy and fear dictate his actions. Now he had stepped into a new role, one where he took command of his potential rather than allowing the past to dictate it. His daughter Emily burst through the door, smeared with paint from art class. "Dad, look. I made this." Her eyes sparkled with the kind of enthusiasm that reminded him of his own passion for design. "That's amazing, Em," he said, kneeling to level with her. "You know, we're going to create something special together soon." Her face lit up. "Like a big art project?" "Even better," he said, smiling. "A way to build futures." Through Emily's innocent excitement, Tom felt a renewed sense of purpose. Every line he sketched was imbued with the intention of teaching her about resilience, creativity, and courage. The impending rendezvous with Mark loomed, intertwining nervousness with excitement. As days passed, Tom honed his designs, orchestrating presentations that conveyed not merely his expertise but also vulnerabilities, a stark contrast to the overconfident facade he had once erected. His portfolio became a living testament of growth, blossoming with ideas that nurtured both aesthetic and emotional depth. However, deep down he wrestled with the underlying implications of bringing Mark into this journey. Could he trust him not just in business but as a partner in this revitalization process? The ghost of their rivalry lingered, and in the dark moments of self-reflection, he wondered if accepting Mark's help could expose him to the same medications of doubt that had held him hostage for so long. As he prepared for their upcoming meeting, the stakes felt daunting. The stakes of his present conjoined with fears of his past. Would this collaboration enable him to carve a new path? Or would it turn into yet another reminder of past vulnerabilities? The questions loomed heavy in his thoughts, and a sense of dread intermingled with determination. The moment of truth awaited him. Drawing a steadying breath, Tom clutched his sketches, a familiar power coursing through him, reminding him of why he had to confront fear head-on. Would he be able to emerge transformed, or would he crumble under the weight of expectation, both self-imposed and projected? The edge of an impending breakthrough lingered, sending ripples of anticipation through him. Would the collaboration with Mark empower him to reforge his identity one last time? Inhaling deeply, he committed to facing whatever uncertainty lay ahead, for he knew the time had come to confront both his past and the new opportunities that awaited him. As the sun set on the day of his meeting with Mark, Tom found himself pacing the small living room. The sketches sprawled before him like a chaotic map of his ambitions and fears. Shadows draped across the walls, elongating his reflection and amplifying the internal struggle. What if it all unraveled? What if Mark dismissed his vision as naive, unworthy of exploration? He remembered Emily's laughter as she painted, carefree and brimming with creativity. Was it really possible to tap into that kind of raw passion in the professional world? Every successful architect he admired seemed to radiate confidence, as if they naturally tapped into inspiration. Could he cultivate that same spirit, not just for himself but in collaboration with someone he once viewed as a rival? The thought both terrified and thrilled him. Arriving at the sleek cafe where they agreed to meet, he felt his heart race. The place thrummed with energy, conversations bubbling around him, the clatter of cups, the hiss of the espresso machine. It mirrored his state of mind, vibrant but chaotic, filled with potential and uncertainty. He ordered a coffee and took a seat at a table where the sunlight streamed in, illuminating the sketches he had brought. Out of habit, he drowned thoughts of self-doubt about his caliber as an architect by poring over the designs, each line representing a piece of his commitment to mutual growth. As if on cue, Mark entered, exuding his usual confidence but also a subtle air of curiosity. Mark nodded, sliding into the chair opposite him. The slight smirk still lingered on his face, but it felt lighter today, inviting, even. "Thanks for meeting with me," Tom managed, his voice steadier than he felt. "Let's see what you've got," Mark replied, a mix of skepticism and intrigue in his tone. Tom laid out his sketches, detailing the innovative co-housing projects, the thoughtful layouts, and the integration of community spaces that he envisioned. As he spoke, he could feel the rhythm return, echoing the energy he had felt during their phone call. Mark leaned closer, his brows furrowing in concentration, and Tom seized the moment to pour his vision into the space between them. "This project isn't just buildings. It's about creating environments where people flourish," he exclaimed, his own passion igniting with every word. "Spaces that resonate emotionally, where functionality marries creativity." Mark's expression shifted, interest swirling in his eyes. "Interesting. You seem different today." Tom took a moment, weighing the reflection back at him from Mark's gaze. "I am different today. I've been reflecting on what it means to create, not just for profit or status but for purpose. Seeing Emily's enthusiasm rekindled my belief in the power of design. Right, your daughter. You've got to maintain that vision, Mark said, nodding slightly. But tell me, how do you plan to tackle the inevitable challenges this kind of project will face? A brief silence fell between them, tension seeming to cling to the air. Each question from Mark felt like a test not just of his idea but of his resolve. By embracing collaboration, by confronting fears head-on, just as I'm doing now with you, he admitted. His voice steady. Mark leaned back, a thoughtful expression crossing his face, suggesting that perhaps the friendly rivalry was morphing into something more constructive. You're opening the floor to the wrong kind of troubles, Tom, he finally said, but you might just have the necessary vision to navigate them. Adrenaline surged through Tom. The strands of tension he had felt earlier began to loosen. Could it be that he was starting to forge a connection that could transcend their past rivalry? That's the idea, Tom replied, emboldened by Mark's cautious respect. We could redefine our paths together. In that moment of shared understanding, Tom grasped something vital, not merely the possibility of a collaboration, but the realization that he held strength in vulnerability and connection. As the meeting progressed, they delved deeper into the logistics, both men marking their own territories but leaning toward an alliance. Discussions of challenges, resources, and timelines morphed from potential pitfalls to exciting opportunities for growth. Yet, somewhere in the back of his mind, the anxiety lingered. What if the collaboration faltered as so many ventures had before? What if his past failures interrupted this new path? As the meeting wound down, excitement coiled tightly within him. They tentatively agreed to a follow-up meeting to outline next steps. And Tom left the cafe, heart racing, anticipation buzzing in his veins. The afternoon light filtered through the trees, weaving through the streets as he walked. He was ready to forge a future not just for himself but for Emily and those who would experience his designs. But then a thought struck him. Was he truly ready for the turbulence ahead? The shadows of doubt still danced in the periphery of his consciousness, whispering of potential ruin. He paused, a half step short of the street curb. There was still so much to uncover, so many hurdles to leap. Could he maintain this developmental momentum? Would working with Mark unearth hidden aspects of himself? Or would he find himself spiraling back into the habits of old? With a blend of excitement and dread swirling in his gut, he took a deep breath, stepping onto the road ahead, a path shrouded in uncertainty, and yet bursting with possibilities that awaited to be tapped. What untapped strength would manifest as he ventured deeper into this collaboration? The days blurred together as Tom transitioned from his initial meeting with Mark into an intense whirlwind of preparation. He buried himself in the sketches and blueprints, working tirelessly to mold his ideas into something tangible. With each stroke of his pencil, he sought to distill Emily's free spirit into architectural form, a translation of joy into structure. Yet, beneath this creative eruption lay an ever-present ghost of self-doubt that clawed at his resolve. Every evening, after tucking Emily into bed, he would stare blankly at the sketches littering the floor of his small apartment, shadows creeping in steadily. Sleep eluded him. Visions of collapsing structures danced through his mind, fear of failure a constant hum. Why did he find it so hard to believe in his own worth? The late-night conversations with himself felt heavily loaded, each question spiraling back into what-ifs. What if he flopped? What if Mark's investment in him amplified his shortcomings? The breakthrough came unexpectedly during one quiet evening. He rummaged through a box of old sketches. Remnants of early passion faded with time. Amongst them he surfaced a piece he had rendered years ago, a whimsical depiction of a treehouse, complete with a curved stairway and vibrant spaces meant for laughter and creativity. The moment he saw it, nostalgia washed over him, but so did realization. The joy of creation had not vanished. It had simply been silenced by the noise of expectations. Motivated by this recollection, he called Emily into the room, a spark igniting a simple intention within him. "Look at this," he said, excitement bubbling over as he pointed to the sketch. "Do you remember the treehouse we used to dream about?" Her eyes lit up. "I love that. Can we build it someday?" Tom felt a warmth seep into his chest. "Yes, we can," he nodded, breathing in the innocence and passion her words ignited. "But first I need to build something else. Something bigger. Just make it the best. People need to feel happy in it," she said, mischief peppering her voice. Her innocence clashed with the weight of his duties. Yet in her words he discovered more than just childlike optimism. He unearthed clarity. If the core of architecture was to create spaces that inspired happiness and emotional connection, then his own design needed a pulse and authenticity he had long dismissed. As days passed and meetings drew near, he found himself walking through the city, absorbing the environments that surrounded him, battling creative fatigue with swift glances at nature's own designs. Park benches raked with sunlight, playgrounds alive with laughter, and the unexpected corners of buildings that invited interaction. Each moment pushed the barriers of his rigidity. His perspective began to transform. When he met Mark again, he carried with him not just sketches but renewed vigor and a simple yet profound belief in the impact of emotional resonance in architecture. The morning light flooded into the meeting room as he laid the designs before Mark with a newfound confidence. "Look at these spaces, Mark. They aren't just functional. They breathe life. They can make people happy. That's my real vision." Tom's voice rang with conviction, shaking off the layers of doubt that once weighed him down. Mark's eyes grew wide, and he leaned in. "This is fresh. Feels personal." The exchange felt electric, a palpable evolution from their previous meeting. Together they scrutinized the designs, but rather than the adversarial banter of before, this felt collaborative, exploratory. Yet just as adrenaline coursed through him, another shadow loomed on the horizon. The looming deadline for their project proposal felt as if it could crush the excitement he had cultivated. Time was slipping, and with it, was he risking another failure? Tom wrestled with that thought fiercely throughout the following weeks, his nights still tumultuous yet now tethered to a flicker of hope. Would he falter under pressure, or had he finally nurtured the growth that would counter those long-held fears? As he prepared for the final pitch, he came to one critical realization: this was not just about him anymore. It was about capturing a vision that mattered. He would find the strength within himself, not only for his sake but for his daughter's conviction. With pages filled with ideas and an invigorated spirit, he stood at the edge of the precipice, ready to step into the unknown. Would the world meet his aspirations, or would past failures return to haunt him when it mattered most? The moment of truth loomed ahead, and with it came the weight of realization. He stood on the brink of something transformative, one that examined the depth of his conviction and creativity, echoing not just through his own heart but that of his daughter's laughter. Would this finally be the moment where his designs spoke for themselves, or would he find himself confronting his deepest fears once more? As he approached the final pitch, Tom found himself oscillating between exhilaration and terror. The sketches piled on his desk felt like a map leading him to either success or further despair. A deadline loomed, a mere week away, and the thought of standing in front of Mark and possible investors sent waves of anxiety crashing against his resolve. The fear was no longer just personal. It was tied deeply to the ambitions he had set for Emily's future as well. His mornings were consumed with relentless practice. Each simulation of the pitch was a battle against specters of self-doubt that lurked uninvited. In the mirror, he rehearsed the words designed to persuade and ignite inspiration, yet even as his voice echoed off the walls, he felt a dissonance between what he intended to express and the nagging uncertainty nagging at him. It wasn't just the designs at stake, it was a vision of life, of home, of happiness. "Why am I frozen?" he muttered one evening, pounding his fist against the table as he stared at the half-finished proposal designed to capture not just space on paper, but the hearts of others. "Am I really cut out for this?" The faint sound of laughter from Emily's room pierced his thoughts, reminding him of why he was fighting this battle at all. He paused, drawing a breath infused with her innocent humor. Images of their treehouse dreams came flooding back, and that previous night's ignited spark now blazed in his chest. Perhaps the answer lay not in perfection but in authenticity. With renewed fervor, he shifted his gaze back to his drawings. The designs flickered with potential, yet he knew they needed something more: a soul. What was a structure without resonance? He reviewed each blueprint, listening to an inner voice urging him to delve deeper. Emboldened, Tom reached for a blank sheet of paper. Rather than thinking about how others would perceive his work, he began writing a letter to Emily, pouring his thoughts out as if to infect the canvas with meaning. "Dear Emily, when I think about the treehouse, I don't just see walls and a roof. I see the laughter we'll share, the dreams we'll craft together. I see a space that breathes joy." The words flowed in a stream, echoing sentiments of love and hope. For the first time Tom felt the weight lift, clarity washing over uncertain as the final days whizzed by. Those words transformed into his pitch's backbone. He infused his designs with memories, sketches reflecting moments of connection he felt in their tiny apartment, the feel of sunlight on their faces, the sound of rain tapping against the window, time enveloped in shared storytelling. He began to laugh at himself, loosening the grip of anxiety as he regained a sense of playfulness in his work. The eve of the presentation arrived, carrying with it an unsettling blend of nerves and excitement. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he reviewed his notes, his heart racing in rhythmic anticipation. "Just be yourself," he whispered, willing the words to silence the final echoes of doubt. Morning broke like the dawning of a new era, brighter, charged with potent possibility. Armed not only with his designs but with the legacy of emotion, Tom strode towards the meeting, footsteps filled with intention. He visualized Mark, the investors, and their criticisms swirling away, replaced by the warm smiles and laughter that had always defined his passion for architecture. As he entered the conference room, the hushed murmurs greeted him like distant whispers of encouragement. He set up his display, heart beating against the armor of hopes and dreams. Taking a deep breath, he faced the audience, prepared to share not just structures, but memories woven into every curve and corner. But just as he was about to begin, the door swung open. A figure stepped inside, their presence commanding attention. Tom's heart raced anew. Who could it be? Someone who could change everything again, just as he felt assured in his own skin. The moment anticipated teetered on the brink of revelation, a potential turning point needing to be addressed. Would he step confidently into his destiny, or would this unexpected arrival send his carefully laid plans spiraling into chaos? Tom's heart raced, a jarring reminder of the stakes he was poised to confront. As the figure that had just entered the conference room moved into the light, recognition struck him like a bolt of lightning. It was Lisa, his former mentor and a figure whose influence had been pivotal in his early career. The air thickened with tension. Her presence felt like both an anchor and a weight. He admired her fiercely but also remembered her sharp critiques during the days he mentored under her watchful eye. She exuded confidence, her blue eyes scanning the room and finally landing on him, filling him with a mixture of dread and unexpected comfort. "Tom," she said, her voice steady, cutting through the cloud of uncertainty. "I just couldn't miss this." For a moment, he struggled to respond, the practiced words of his pitch mysteriously slipping from his grasp. The admiration he felt for Lisa was tinged with insecurity. What did she think about his work? Had she come to validate him, or was she here to critique? He swallowed hard, heart thumping louder than his thoughts. It was as if she were a mirror held up to his aspirations and fears, each reflection magnifying what he had battled to reconcile over the past months. His worth as an architect and a father. "Right," he finally managed to say, his voice carrying a tremor he couldn't quite suppress. "Thank you for being here." It felt inadequate, too polite in the face of what this moment meant, yet it was all he could muster before launching into his presentation. As he began to speak, the weight of her gaze both challenged and encouraged him. His earlier rehearsals began to fade away, replaced with a renewed sense of urgency. Each word poured from him with a vitality he hadn't realized was missing, fueled by the combination of nostalgia, hope, and a hint of rivalry. "This isn't just architecture. This is about creating spaces that echo the laughter of family and the dreams of young children," he asserted, gesturing toward his sketches as if they could somehow encapsulate the essence of what he aimed to build. He drew from the letter he had written to Emily, his daughter's laughter now interwoven with the visuals that sprawled before them, a physical embodiment of love and aspiration. Lisa's expression softened as she listened closely, nodding at key points, her critical nature giving way to encouragement. Moments of clarity hit him as he spoke. Inspiration surged through his veins. The fear that had tethered him began to dissolve, replaced by a conviction carved from authenticity. His perception shifted. This was no longer a mere pitch, it was a shared vision, a blueprint for a life he could create for Emily. As he finished, the room was enveloped in a pregnant pause, every eye now focused solely on him. It was that eerie stillness, the calm before the storm, filled with unspoken possibilities. Tom caught a glimpse of Lisa's approving nod, and suddenly he couldn't tell if he was envisioning the possible outcomes, or if he was ready to face whatever awaited him next. Then it happened. Mark cleared his throat, the weight of expectation palpable in the air. This is impressive work, Tom. But it sounds like you're still holding back. What else lies behind these designs? What is really at stake for you? His heart dropped. Here was the moment of reckoning. The knife edge of vulnerability he had skirted in his zeal to impress. It was not just the designs he feared failing, it was exposing the depths of his fatherly ambition to a panel of experienced investors, each assessing not just potential but the heart that lay behind the work. Tom paused, anxiety threatening to resurface. Would he invoke those fears, lay bare his connection to each sketch and outline, risking judgment? The silence wrapped around him, leaving no easy escape. These thoughts ignited a spark. He was about to confront not only Mark but the essence of who he was. Could he possibly open up in this high-stakes environment? The investment might fail, but what if sharing this truth could unlock something crucial not just for him, but for Emily too? As the moment hung in the balance, Tom inhaled deeply, ready to confront not just the question posed to him, but his entire journey, one where his daughter was not just the motivation but the heart of his designs. Would he dare to speak? Would he reveal the most vulnerable part of himself that lay beneath the sketches? Whatever happens next will redefine everything, he thought, steeling himself as Tom prepared to speak candidly. The moment of truth had come, a leap into the unknown waiting just beyond the revelations he could embrace. The silence hovered like fog, thick and suffocating, while Tom's internal dialogue spiraled into overdrive. His heart thundered in his chest, a drumbeat echoing the crescendo of his thoughts. What Mark had just asked was not just disruptive. It was a catalyst, forcing the hidden parts of him into the light. Uncertainty and courage warred within him, but one truth glimmered through the chaos. This was an opportunity to redefine everything. He focused on Lisa, who appeared intrigued but also expectant. Her presence brought both comfort and trepidation, igniting forgotten memories of heated discussions over blueprints and late-night design critiques. Would she be able to see the connection he felt for Emily, the invisible strings connecting his aspirations as a father and as an architect? Every design I've crafted, he began slowly, his voice steadier than he anticipated, comes from a place of love and hope for my daughter. He paused, allowing the weight of his statement to settle. I want her to grow up in a world that is beautiful and nurturing, spaces that inspire joy. But there's more at stake than just aesthetics. It's my commitment to her future. The room remained quiet, everyone absorbed in his words. Tom felt layers of armor begin to peel away a vulnerability he hadn't intended to wield, now becoming his most powerful ally. I'm scared that my ambitions won't amount to anything. I fear I won't be the father she deserves if I fail. This project isn't just about building. It's about forging a legacy for her, a promise that no matter what, she'll always have a foundation to stand on. There was a shift in the energy around him. Mark leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly as if he were peeling back Tom's layers, searching for authenticity. Lisa nodded, her gaze more encouraging now, and Tom seized the moment, emboldened. Every stroke of my pen represents a commitment to create spaces that reflect family and growth. They symbolize the laughter and joy I wish for Emily. Each design captures not just walls and roofs, but the potential for dreams and the possibility of happiness. His hands moved animatedly over the sketches, his voice fueled by the burgeoning clarity that accompanied honesty. Something within him sparked anew. He could feel a shift, an energy pulsing through his thoughts and affirmations. He began to illustrate not just the buildings he envisioned but the very essence of companionship, joy, and belonging that his designs aspired to nurture. As he spoke, the dam of self-doubt began to fracture further. The once menacing specters of judgment morphed into faces of hope and understanding. For the first time he viewed Lisa not just as a mentor, but as a potential ally, someone who had once seen promise in him and now observed a man willing to embrace his truths. Tom could feel the tide changing, and it kindled a resolve deep within him. Whether it leads to success or failure, unveiling this part of myself is worth the risk. Perhaps real growth lies not in the applause but in unearthing the courage to share my story. As he concluded his thoughts, he looked around the room, meeting Mark's demanding gaze, and Lisa's encouraging one. A shared acknowledgement flickered between all present, and Tom felt a sense of acceptance wash over him, threading itself through the stillness that reverberated. But suddenly, Mark's expression hardened, and Tom braced himself for a comeback. Incredible insight, Tom. But if you're this emotionally invested, How can we be assured you'll navigate the business side of this project without letting your hopes cloud your judgment? That question struck a chord of doubt within him. Could he genuinely balance sensitivity with the financial realities of architecture? The room felt charged again, but Tom also felt a new wave of determination build inside him. He wasn't about to let doubt unravel this momentum. Perhaps that's something I need to confront, Tom responded, each word considered yet instinctual. Balancing emotion with practicality will be my biggest challenge. But it's also where my growth lies. He paused again, knowing that none of this was just about drafting more designs or securing the investment. It was about transformation, both for himself and for Emily. The path forward had become clearer now, yet rich with unanswered questions above the echo of his own thoughts. He decided to forge ahead, ready to embark on this journey he hadn't anticipated, one that promised to test every facet of his identity and conviction. As the weight of uncertainty lingered, so did the challenge before him. What other truths lay hidden within me, waiting to be unearthed? Tom stepped back, reflecting on the whirlwind of emotions that had unfolded during the pitch. The warmth of vulnerability and sincerity had overshadowed the fear that often clouded his mind. He could feel a palpable shift within the culmination of weeks of hard work, reflection, and growth. It was more than just a presentation. It was a defining moment that encapsulated the essence of who he had become, both as a father and an architect. Days turned into weeks as Tom immersed himself in the collaboration with Mark. Instead of rivalry, they found a shared purpose that transformed their interactions into constructive dialogues. The once competitive banter was replaced with brainstorming sessions where ideas thrived. Tom felt invigorated as they designed not only functional spaces but environments imbued with emotional connections, homes that resonated with laughter, creativity, and community. With each meeting, Tom began to cultivate a newfound confidence. He demonstrated his competence, eloquently defending his vision and substantively contributing to Mark's ideas. The interplay of their strengths honed the project into something remarkable, capturing the essence of family life while celebrating individuality. He finally began to speak the language of architecture fluently, expressing his designs not just through sketches but through the emotions they were destined to evoke. Their project proposal grew into a tapestry of innovation, a testament to the harmony that blended their unique perspectives. As the deadline approached, they prepared for the funding pitch with meticulous care, the palpable energy between them more collaborative than competitive. Tom felt optimistic, believing wholeheartedly in the significance of their vision. The day of the pitch arrived, and as Tom entered the room, he felt a surge of anticipation mixed with an exhilarating sense of purpose. Flanked by Mark, whose confidence mirrored his own burgeoning self-assurance, they stepped toward the panel of investors. Tom shared his design with enthusiasm, showcasing the emotional resonance woven throughout their plans. Each sketch, layered with purpose, vivid with potential, illustrated not just structures but the architectural embodiment of dreams, warm homes fertile with laughter and love. After the presentation, the investors deliberated, absorbing the essence of their work. When they issued their verdict, Tom felt the air thicken and uncharacteristic silence followed. Then, as if a collective breath had been held, the lead investor nodded slowly. Impressive alignment of emotion with practicality, she said, her voice resonating like a chord struck in harmony. We're excited to fund this project. Tom's heart soared. Years of self-doubt gave way to triumph, the kind he had yearned for, not just for himself but for Emily. Their future sparkled with possibility, and at that moment, as the magnitude of success washed over him, he realized how profoundly he had transformed. He had not only secured funding for a project that encapsulated his aspirations as an architect, but also solidified his role as a mentor and protector for Emily. Together they would build a legacy not just of architectural marvels but of resilience, creativity, and love. The success was not mere professional recognition but a resounding affirmation of his journey. He had conquered the ghosts of his past and emerged with purpose. In the weeks that followed, Tom dedicated himself to the project passionately, channeling the lessons learned through struggle into each design. With every curve and corner, he shared the journey of resilience with Emily. She helped paint walls and sketch gardens, becoming an integral part of what they were creating. Together they breathed life into the architectural spaces, making memories that adorned their home with happiness. Finally, As they unveiled the completed project, a community space thriving with families and children playing, Tom understood that this achievement transcended designs. The laughter of children intertwined with the colors and shapes. Each echo spoke of possibilities. He stood proudly, not just as an architect, but as a father who had reclaimed his dreams. This moment solidified his transformation. It was the culmination of years of striving to declare that he was not defined by his failures. Tom had achieved what he once believed impossible. He had forged a path where ambition met authenticity, and in doing so, had built a framework of hope for both himself and Emily. The Odyssey had completed a full circle, from uncertainty and feeling lost to a resolute understanding of who he was. As he watched Emily joyfully run through the community center, laughter dancing like music in the air, Tom felt a profound sense of completion. He had become the architect of his life, leaving behind the shadows of what he feared, and stepping boldly into the light of discovery and fulfillment. Now it was their time, and together they would embrace futures unbounded by limitations. Each path ahead was lined with promise and laughter, designed by a love that was resolute. It's your turn to embrace your journey. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts in uplifting transformative narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to help inspire others. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the journey. Let's spread the word together.